fear can't be the thing that stops you. It's like, because it almost doesn't matter. It really doesn't. If it's not like life threatening or actually endangering you physically, like you should pretty much go for it always, I feel like.
Yeah, but the tiger's right over there, Johnny.
Yeah.
It's coming to get us.
Yeah. He's fucking lurking. He's always there. He's always there.
We're always collaborating at all times with the universe.
Oh, like that almost sounds like it's kind of like seeing like, well, what can we promote? What can we get back in that? Like, if there was a format here, like I've got a guest and we're going to talk about this thing.
Right.
But
it's both. Because like, to me, that's the reason you would want to have a guest on is they're already promoting something. And so the first thing you want to do when you're in the middle of promoting something you're working on is have assets to be able to put out there to show people you discussing it. And if not discussing it, like and not the art itself, it's like just the conversation surrounding it, and that's what people love. Like they like transparency. We love knowing. Like I love on TikTok, I like following the Mix with the Masters. They have a lot of different breakdowns of like Billie Eilish tracks, and they're like, here's her like 32 track harmonies layer that she does, and you can hear it raw and you can hear it with all the effects and plugins and stuff like that in it. But the idea of being able to see their workaround, it just strips the stuff that makes you afraid to fucking make your art in the first place. Like when you're, like the artist dilemma is the fucking imposter syndrome. You're like, oh, like my stuff's not good enough. And there's this like line you have to hit where you can appreciate somebody else's art for being great or maybe even being better than yours without it diminishing your art. And that holds people back, I think, from starting to do the things that they want. They want to do it. They want to start the podcast. They want to write the song. I'm the fucking quintessential, like, want to write a song. Like, literally, you gave me the book, How to Write One Song by Jeff Tweedy.
Yeah.
And I started looking through it, and I started looking at all the pages that you had folded in to be like, oh, what's the nugget here that I thought it, because I didn't see like a crease on the inside of the spine. So I was like, is this a new book? Did he just buy me this book because we were talking about it? And then I looked in and I saw the Ben pages, and I'm like looking at some of them, and I'm like, yeah, it makes sense that he would highlight this. And these are like poignant things to think about. Like when you're a creative from the video side of things, you're like, there's a whole rigmarole of fucking production that goes into everything. So you can't just like half-ass it or kind of like wing it. And like, you can be like, I'm going to make a shitty video today, but like it's just too easy to do it. There's too many parameters that you're working with that you can fuck it up.
That's what we're doing right now, right?
Yeah. But like, but it's not the same as whenever, in all cases, it's not the same because like, look at you with Mountain, you're like, I'm going to write a song. I hope it sucks. Like going into it with that mentality. And so I guess like, to me, the song you get out of that, I hear it, I'm like, fuck, this would be a really cool rock ballad. Like we should cover it and put it out as a rock version of this. That's not your version of it, and let us just do our thing with it. And it's like, who cares which pops off first?
Dude, I would love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I've literally,
I can already hear it in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as I was listening to it, just the piano, I was like, oh yeah, this is nice. So yeah, I mean, like to me, Collab or Die is a kamikaze effort into just getting over the insecurities that you have as an artist or a creative or an entrepreneur about taking that next step. Like I think a lot about like my mom, for example, she wants to start a business. She's like, let's go buy some properties. Let's like, yeah, fuck it. Let's do it. And so we find this like 3-bedroom trailer and we're like, okay, it's $50,000. The lot rent is $300 a month. The mortgage would be $300 a month. That's $600 a month. That's what I'm paying to live in a 2-bedroom apartment. Do I want my first home to be a trailer? No. But if I could do my first time homeowners, buy this thing, Airbnb it out for Penn State football games, like do it that way. It's like, it's a startup and just like any other, it's like, I watched my mom, like she was like, I remember for years, she was like, I just want to live on an island. I want to live by the beach. And I remember her calling me after she landed in Hawaii the first time she moved out there. And she was like, it just hit me. Like I got out of the airplane and I'm out of the airport and I'm looking over and here's the beach. And then here's, here's this volcano monument on the one side of the island. And she's like, holy fuck, I'm here. And like that happened because she was like, I'm going to apply. I'm going to, after she saw me graduate from college, she was like, I'm going to go back. I think I'm going to go back and finish my degree. And then she doesn't. She's like, I'm thinking I'm going to go get my master's. I'm like, go get your master's, get on it, go do it. And she goes and does that. And then she jumps to Texas. And then that's a segue to Hawaii. And then she's there. And so it's like, too many people are afraid. And I remember all the shit that my family gave her. They were like, you're never going to move to, why would you want to move to Hawaii? Like, that just sounds ridiculous. But she loved it there. Like, and she busted her ass to get there and kept her eyes on the prize. And that's the thing that I feel like Collab or Die is kind of, I want this podcast to, when I bring people on, I want them to talk about what they're doing. I want them to talk about what's going on in their world. Like, I've got other people lined up, but I was like, I want to start the first one because I want to, the first one's always the roughest, and thank God you're so gentle. So like, I'm not going to have to worry about it being too terrible. But if I could, like, you know, get over the hurdle. And it's not like I didn't, like, I mean, look at the gear that I've got invested. I spent like $500 on the fucking sign just because I was like, I just want it, because if I get it, then I can't back out of it. What am I going to do? Hang that sign up in my apartment and be like, yeah, that was for the podcast I never started. I know plenty of people that do shit like that, but I don't want to count myself amongst them. And I'm listening to stats today on podcasts, just thinking about it in perspective, like more than 90, I think it's like 80% of podcasts that stop after their third episode. Huh. I started another podcast with my buddy Mike Smith and my buddy Maddie, and I think we did 2 or 3 episodes, but we wanted to drink while we were doing it. And it's like not a recipe for being constructively cohesive. Like, talks about, you know, racism and this. I'm like, why are 3 white guys sitting around a table talking about this? Like, I was like, this is not the direction I had in mind for this conversational like podcast. And so to be able to do, so 80% of the, for most podcasts that start, of like the millions of podcasts that start, are done after 3 episodes. And then after that, another 150 million drop off after, I want to say like 11 episodes or something like that.
Okay. Or
20 episodes. And so like at the 20 episode mark, most of those ones have dropped off and never done another one. So if to be in the top like 5% of podcasts in the world, you just have to make it to 21 episodes. I can fucking do that. It's like, I don't know what it is about the video game mentality of like, oh, it's a game. I can challenge myself to beat this level if I know what the parameters of the mission are. Like, what is the task? Well, I want to do this podcast. Like, I love talking to people. I love talking to different people, entrepreneurs, artists, visual artists, you know, musicians. Like, I just love being in that realm because that brain is a different kind of brain. And so like, I was like, okay, I'm going to have Jason on and we're going to talk. We're going to do it. Like, I could talk about My Hero Zero, but that's not how I equate you as like my friend. Like, it's one cog in the machine of the shit that you have going on all the time. It's like Happy Valley Song Lab. Okay, cool. This is a place where you're going to help artists like get past those hurdles. And you've been a huge help for me in doing that. Literally, I'm so much further along with like release schedule stuff just because, you know, you were there to be like, oh, you're just overthinking this. It's like, I need that person sometimes. And so I hope that this kind of functions to be that for other people that get the, you know, I'm doing it from a place of like, I don't give a fuck about the growth. I don't care about the audience. I don't care how big it gets. I don't care about like the sponsorships. I'm like, it feels like I'm doing something that I have to do for me because it feels like it's the thing that I want to do. And so I'm just going to do it like that.
So what I'm hearing
yeah,
is that for you, Collab or Die that's your mom's Hawaii.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like, it's a thing it's been on your mind for a long time. This is not your first shot at trying to create a space where people are going to talk together and create content based on those conversations. And you know, I've had the pleasure of getting to know you over, you know, longer than a decade now. So I know that you're definitely a musician, but being somebody who's in the production world and being an entrepreneur, you kind of walk all over, you speak different languages. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they're parallel languages, but I feel like if I can think about this thing with video and color, I can equate that to audio and sound and texture and tone. And so I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And so I kind of feel like I'm walking a catwalk where there's like these lowered offices of these different categories of creation. I kind of like observe and I pick and I'm like, oh, they're doing the same thing as they're doing, only they're doing it with tape and scissors and they're doing it over here with, you know, a hatchet and wood, like whatever. So I think that it does give me like a keen sense of like an omni view of things, but I think that can be hurtful too, because I think that it makes it, I can see a hang up that a production like for video production is going to have. And I think that has to apply to audio. And audio, man, it's like, what's the Bob Marley quote? Like, it's the one thing that when it hits you, you don't feel any pain. And it's like, that's when you're listening. But as somebody who's like creating it, it's like, it's a monster sometimes, you know, like you do. I don't know how you do what you do. Like I've worked with tons of producers. You just have a different brain. It's like a constant creativity brain in terms of like really just manifesting shit out of thin air. Like it seems like that's not what I do, but it's not that I can't, it's that I don't practice to do it like that. And you have, I think, practiced more of your life doing it like that. And so I always look at the way we approach shit and I'm like, you're coming from the artist side and I'm coming from the production side, and we can always meet in the middle and see a lot of the same ground together. But it's like, it's so funny. I love observing the differences in how we get there.
You know, as I was kind of mentally preparing for coming in here today, I was thinking about.
You did that?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I tried.
Just thinking like, what kind of presence do I want to bring? You know, what is there something that I want to talk about? And just thinking about the words collab or die and what that means to me. And like, so when I think about, you know, in the context of music, it's kind of an obvious, like, hey, you need to make music with other people, because that collaboration helps you grow and also gets you out of the boxes that we build for ourselves.
If you're malleable and you work well with people, yeah, like it's a great path to discovering what your artistry is. Like you don't know if you don't cook with a certain spice, like you're not going to be. How many Italian cooks are really good at making authentic Mexican? It's like if they're using different spices and they're trying to make the same dish, it's like it's going to be influenced totally different because they're coming from a different understanding of how to accomplish doing that. That's like vital. It's important to, I think, the creative process.
It's the collaboration.
Yeah.
Well, and so you brought up that book, and I've had the pleasure of being in the position of being an artist coach and an artist mentor for the last 2 years. As you know, I got started during the pandemic when all the shows kind of came to a stop overnight. And, you know, in my mind, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to take all the experience that I have and I'm going to pass that on. And what I found was that everybody that I've worked with is experiencing the exact same things.
Yeah, see, I can assume that that's the way it is, but I don't see it the same way I don't witness it. I don't observe it. So it's not as probably, you know, cemented into my brain as it is in yours from seeing the patterns.
Yeah, being able to see the patterns has been so cool. And you know, again, like I went in with the mentality of like, I'm the expert and I'm going to pass this on. And what I found over and over again was there's always a point when I'm working with somebody where they hold the mirror up and they turn it back on me. And they're like, well, what about you? And why aren't you doing this? And what's, you know, when somebody gets comfortable with me, they'll kind of like, not always on purpose, but sort of call me on my own shit. And,
do you have like an example?
Yeah. I was working with an artist. Her name's Layla Said Nothing.
I was wondering if it was going to be a Layla story.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like a really interesting creative creature.
Yes. Yeah. At one point we were, I think 3 days into working on what she called her mixtape. She, at one point she just stops and she goes, if I had one pinky's worth of your talent, it would be over. So what gives, you know? And like, I wanted to be like, excuse me, that's not the dynamic here. Like, I did not invite this kind of conversation. And then I just thought like, okay, what if I actually answered that question from a real place? And I was like, it hit me. I'm like, it's because I think I have to do it all myself.
Yeah.
And like that's like, it really came to me clearly that some of the blocks that were in my creative process were because I felt like if I couldn't do it myself, then I don't deserve to do it. And
yeah. Well, so that makes me think about at the beginning of my artist journey, it was like, if you were like, I came from the band artist side of things. And so there's a lot of purist mentality when it comes to that, where it's like, if we didn't write our song, like, oh, there's ghost writers. It's like, yeah, those are people whose whole fucking lives is just writing music. It doesn't matter if it's catchy. Like I know all kinds of guys, they just write stuff because they're like, this is the kind of music I want to produce. And so they can find a band, and then you can come into an idea and then start spinning it around and changing the progression, putting your flavor into it and altering it. But it gives you this like template for a starting point that can, you know, like when you start a song, you can become anything at any point in the game. But there's this fear of amongst like purists and this like amateur mindset artist where it's like, oh, if we have somebody else write this song with us or for us, it's like we're not getting the authentic. It's not our song then. It's like, I don't know how to break it to you, but like you are influenced by every band you've ever listened to. Like if I like the comparisons that we get and that like I get from my voice, but I'm like, that's interesting. I didn't hear that. I can't hear myself like that in that context. And these are artists that I love. And I'm like, cool. Like that's a group that I like. I'm glad that I can have some sort of like tonality to me that makes people like resonate with them in that way. Maybe that's like a good thing to be able to be like accessible to people just tonally. But some people are just like, no, if I didn't write it, like it's fake. And so the collaborative, like remember when we did the Bad Habits cover?
Yeah.
Like you kind of threw caution to the wind. You were like, fuck it. Okay, we're just going to do it. And it's like, whatever, we're just going to do it. And we had so much fun. The video shoot was like, took longer than it was supposed to. And it was a great collaborative effort. Like all you had to do was sing on it, but it was like a chance for you to step out of your comfort zone of all the types of work and you know sonic tones that you're hearing in music because you're more on the pop side of things. But My Hero Zero Live isn't like that's guitars and drums and like live instrumentation and samples and pads and saxophone and fucking trumpet and you know, like everything. So you can't. It's like you don't get that same experience as you do doing a collaborative effort with another band altogether, where it's like you're sonically not. It's not like you're out of your element. The music's still music, right? Like theory still applies, but you're in a place where you can kind of step out and try something new. And like, I love how it turned out.
Yeah.
And that was, I think the first collab that we did. I think it's the first collab cover we did.
That was the first collab we ever, that's the only collab we've done so
It's
far.
the only one for now.
Yeah.
But it's the first one that like Relic Hearts had ever done.
Oh,
Like
cool.
we had never done like a joint collab truly where it was like
I popped your cherry both times.
yeah, for sure. So it's like and that was important for me to do because I was like, we've never done this. So I was like, that's stupid. Like, why aren't we doing that? Like, I love it when it happens. I love when, you know, a group covers another song and it's two powerhouse groups that I like. And they have like, it's like one band's doing it and they have two singers. It's like, that's fucking dope. That's like the best thing that you can do. And this idea of like, oh, we collaborate on something or we co-write with somebody. It's like, it's not ours. Is like, none of it's ours. Like even when you release it, it's not yours anymore. Like it's yours up until you fucking hit enter on the distro and it's out in the world now. Doesn't mean that if it's an original, it's like, this means whatever it means to whoever hears it. You don't get to say what it is anymore. You have, maybe it came from a place and you can explain that, but I've heard other artists that I like explain a song that they wrote and have been like, fuck, I was way off, or I misheard that lyric and I equated it to something else entirely, or, you know, like it's just never the same once it's out there. And so I think to hold on to it when you're writing it and assume that it can't be like yours because it's not purely yours is like, it's just a discredit to yourself. Like, why would you shoot yourself down from doing that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that you said it very clearly when you said it starts with this maybe young artist mentality, right? When people, I think enter into the field of, I'm going to express myself. A lot of times it does, I believe, come from a place of there's pain there, and that people are looking for space to try to feel out who they are and how they want to be seen in the world. And so, like, this has to be mine. It is a really understandable feeling early on in that process. I know.
Do you think you still hold on to it?
You know, almost like not enough. Like it's, I think as the pendulum swings, I went all the way from like the second album that I released as Jason O. I think I did like 15 revisions with the graphic designer for the album cover art, where I think it was mostly about moving one letter and like stretching it out and like trying to make it feel right, because it just didn't feel like it was really, really expressing me and who I was. And like I think I looked back at this at one point and it was like a 2.5. One of the revisions was like a 2.5 page email where I was explaining what it meant to me and why and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh wow, I was really like, I really needed in that moment, I needed to be seen and heard and feel like my artistic opinion mattered. And then as I kind of, I did a lot of my work on stage in my life. So I've kind of, I like to think of it as a lot of my expression has been in the moment, and then that moment is gone, but it still has served me in the way that expression serves people. So as I've gotten what I've needed from the need to express, my desire to control it kind of evaporated. Or at least that's how I experienced it. I don't know. I've done a lot of therapy the last few years. Maybe my therapist would say that it's more so that I still don't feel like my opinion matters. I'm not really sure, Johnny, but
it's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah. So this book was a recommendation from a young man. His name is Garrett Fitzpatrick, and he's an artist that I've had the pleasure of working with. And he kept talking about this book. And so after hearing him talk about the book for, a couple months, I was like, I think that I'd like to show up, how can I show up better in this relationship and, learn from him. So I ordered this book and I started reading it, and it really resonated with me. It's something that I've passed on. I love that you picked it up out of the studio, and I saw it in the video with Maddie Fresh the other day. Or was it just sitting on your desk?
It was there. Yeah. That was where it was. That was where I found it, and I had taken it. I was like, I'm going to read it. I didn't get to read it. And I was like, maybe I should read it there so I don't like take it in case he wants to read it. And I was like, he wouldn't have sat it there if he was like that worried about it. I was like, all right, I'm going to carry it with me, and then when I can get around to it, I do. So I literally have like been carrying it around with me, and I don't know, man. Like when I was a kid, I loved to read. I was like the kid who could. The Never-Ending Story. You ever see that movie?
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
I'm Bastian. Like I'm like running away, under the blankets, reading my book.
We're
like
all
that was,
Bastian.
Yeah, of course. Right. Yeah. So, and to me, like that was a big part of my life growing up, and I just always loved to read. I don't know, and so like I don't. It's like if I'm not reading something online or an article or some like quick little snippet of something on Instagram or this thing that I'm sharing in my story to be moody or whatever the fuck, like I almost don't read anything. And so at least not in book format. And so an Audible, like I get it. It's great to be able to like listen to it in a podcast format and be able to drive your car and just listen because you can't read at that point. But there is like, I think something that is just organically really powerful about reading, like seeing the words and following the page. And so I'm trying to get back into it because I feel like it's a thing that I've let slip in my life amongst the hustle and bustle of all the shit I need to get done and all the conjecture I feed myself about like what I need to do this week and what my next, ambitious goal is and this, that, and the other thing. And so really I feel like this, when we were sitting down and we were doing some songwriting, you were like, okay, what I'm really seeing is your problem is X, and then X is also kind of leading into Y. And so I'm like, yeah, all right. But to contextualize it, it's like I was able to simplify it in my head where it's like, I just need to show up and do the work. And so to me, showing up with you is doing the work with you, but it's not me doing the work on my own, which is when I should be able to also do it. And it's like, I don't know if it's like I can't put myself in the right mood or give myself the right time or space.
You know what I love about this though is I'm hearing kind of like it's like if I were to Layla you right now.
Yeah,
it's like, why not, John? Like what's if I had a pinky's worth of your understanding of technology and camera, your ability to talk about literally any subject. If that were something that I just had at my disposal, it'd be over, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how I feel. So I want to say like, why not? And what I'm hearing is, some different things popping up. One of them is, I feel like I need to be able to do it in my own. Well, yeah, if I'm doing it with you, I guess I'm doing it, but I really need to be able to do it, by myself.
I want to be able to do it. I've acknowledged that like when I already do it, but I want to find myself in a place where I'm making more time to do it on my own.
Yeah, no, I think that's important. Maybe I'm just trying to tease you because the podcast is called Collab or Die. You know, and I think what's coming up for me is I love the fact that like we're both seeing in ourselves a little bit that like there is this need to want to do it on our own, and yet that also is healthy. Like
Right. I feel like that need for me it feels like it's coming from a healthy place, like not like I need to make all this mine, but I was like, I feel like I'm not doing enough heavy lifting in my creative world with regards to music in the way that I want to. Mm. And so I want to rectify that. Like I'm pointing out like what I would not say is a weakness, but like a spot where I can see room for improvement. So I want to improve in that area. Like the one of the things that really stood out about this book, one of the first passages I wrote that like has been kind of cycling in my brain since the first time I read it was inspiration needs to be like invited in. Like you need to be able to make I like the idea in my head of like, okay, I just need to make some time for it, some space for it. Well, I can set aside an hour between 4 and 5 every Thursday, but like if I don't sit down and do it, it's like I didn't do myself I did myself no justice there. And also I feel like I don't want to get trapped into I can only create when I'm in the mood or when I'm feeling inspired or, like whenever I have the motivation. It's like, I know that 9 times out of 10, just showing up, even if I don't feel like it, is what yields results, period, let alone some of the best.
Yeah, you have to, you don't have to believe in yourself to do the work. If you can define what the work is, then it is a choice.
Yeah, when you're like, I'm going to write a shitty song, like sitting down, it's like, okay, I define the work and now that takes out all the parameters of like walls and things that would like discourage you from like committing and doing something. You can just go for it.
For me, one of the biggest gifts of working with songwriters has been every time I assign the assignment, write a bad song, I also take that assignment on because I'm like, it's tempting to be like, well, I'm giving this assignment out because I know it's sort of a mental trick to like reduce your expectations so that you can get the editing part of your brain out of the way. That way you can just sort of create, right? So like it's tempting to just write it off, but I go, what gives me the right? What gives me the right?
Who the fuck am I?
Exactly. Who the fuck am I to expect somebody else to do this assignment for me? So I take that assignment on every time I give it out. And so in that way, kind of for me, supporting other people's creativity has had the unexpected result of supporting my own creativity. It's been super cool.
But that's a collaborative effort. Like
totally is a collaborative effort. I mean, listen, I want to like, don't like, I don't want people to hear this, but like, sometimes I'm like, why am I being paid for this experience? Because I'm getting so much out of it.
Right.
So I've had to wrestle with that a little bit, but at the end of the day, the opportunity to invest in yourself, the opportunity to invest in your own art, sometimes that means time and sometimes it means money. And sometimes it means putting yourself out there, like taking an emotional risk.
Yeah, like I love the blind money throwing shit at a bunch of gear phase. That's like my favorite. But it turns out like all the best tools in the world don't mean shit if you don't know how to pick them up or use any of them. Uh-huh. And so for a while I suffered with that. And there's like equilibrium eventually. So you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm not fully utilizing all these tools to their greatest benefit, but I'm learning along the way.
Every now and then I'd say every like 4 to 6 months, I have the experience that I've woken up in somebody else's life and I found all of their toys. And I'm like, what have they been doing with this stuff? Why would they have set it up this way? And, and I kind of like redesign the way that I'm interacting with my equipment. And that has an effect of like changing my output as an artist.
I think that, so I do this thing in life in general with most certainly with like bad relationships, where I make decisions out of this idea of catalytic inclination, where it's like, I'm going to do something because that will function as a catalyst to change things that are going on in my world. And so in a relationship that can look a bunch of different ways, but with songwriting, I'm like, oh, like it's interesting to just like native instruments, right? Like being able to sit there with just a keyboard, knowing little to nothing, you can just sit there and play around with any one of these like random plugins and find sounds and textures and scroll through thousands of them. And that can inspire creativity. And so it's like, if it's that easy, then why am I not doing more of it? Or why am I not kind of committing to doing it in other ways where it's like, maybe it's time I start picking up guitar and learning how to play guitar, and maybe it's time I really dive into piano more, because I'd like to be able to, I like the idea of writing my melodies out in key and having like a harp sound or something like that be what when I'm listening to something, I can just play this harp melody through what I'm listening to of this rock song, and the vibration of the string feels like a hum note. And so if I can get that hum note in a lower register, that makes me feel more comfortable that I'm playing with this low harmony octave that is more comfortable for me to write melodies to. And if that's my trick or whatever for that song, it's like, okay, then fuck it, like lean into that and like just do that. But yeah, like that, I think there's something to be said. Like, you got the new monitors, you got those YS7s.
Ah, yeah.
And so like,
they're beautiful.
But, and you said, you're like, I like being able to switch between the two. Like, when I'm tracking, I can switch over these ones and I don't have to worry about feedback. And I like that. Okay, cool. Like that, if that eliminates this hurdle between you not wanting to record because of feedback issues, it's like, obviously it's a no brainer.
I got to be honest. So the reason I have those, there's two reasons. One is, Angel, my wife, who is the primary owner and runs the studio in my life. She said, I want white speakers.
But they're good speakers.
And I said, they're called monitors, babe. She said, yeah, whatever. I want them to be white because they look good. And I said, okay. And then when Nate came in and started working in the studio, he said, these are the speakers that I want to mix on. These are the monitors that I want to mix on. And so I don't know. So for me, it's been like really interesting to wrestle with like, what is my own artistic journey and what is my own bullshit, Right.
And where is the line blur and how much are they the fucking same? Like,
exactly.
How am are these just two sides of the same coin and I'm calling them something different? Is that what this is? Yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like at some point I'm like, it's easy to get caught up in that I'm not doing enough. This sucks, or I'm scared. Or even if you're being honest, like I feel vulnerable. I just don't like the way I sang that, or I don't really like this melody. Like, there's just a million ways you can feel bad about the work that you're doing. But is that like your bullshit, or is that part of the artist's journey where you're like, oh yeah, this is that time in the journey, 20 years when you look back, you're like, oh, that was the part where I was working out my insecurities, or this, that, and another thing. Like, this was how I combated that and got results.
Even the phrase "working out my insecurities," right? When I hear that, I think like the implication there is that we're going to solve the puzzle,
right? And then they'll be gone.
And then we get to put the puzzle over here in a box and be like, well, that was fun. That was a fun phase, right?
Right.
But the way that I think about it is, I think that for me, the creative part of me is like, I think of it as like an inner child, right? The kid who is like the moment for me when I knew that I wanted to be a musician was, and it's burned into my brain. I was humming "Mary Had a Little Lamb" and I was tapping along on a table, and I realized that what I was doing was awesome. Right. And I was like, I'm so good at this.
Yeah.
And
who wrote this?
Yeah. How can I do this? This is incredible. Right. That feeling, it's like I've spent my entire adult life kind of recreating that feeling of like, can I? Maybe I can. Can I? Maybe I can. Am I worth it? I'm totally worth it. I'm not. And so like, that child, I think is the more emotional, the more emotional part of me. And I think many artists have a piece of them that was, I don't know, stunted is not the quite word that I'm looking for, but
that's how it feels when it manifests.
Stifled,
yeah,
let's say.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're all looking for ways to like get those feelings to unlock. And so here's the thing that fucks my head up, right? Because I start to think this way, and then I go, I'm not sure that there's any actual, at like a spiritual level, any difference between music and emotion. And then I go, well, because when I hear music, sometimes I cry, right? And when I hear music, sometimes I'm angry. And when I'm angry, sometimes I make music. And then I start to think about that and I go, well, and it's also, that's how I feel about visual art as well. And so the creations that happen in this world are the result of the feelings that we have. And then I go, art doesn't end with music and visual art. Here we're sitting in a piece of art that you've created, the creative life that you're living of, I want to be a person who's creating content. That just wasn't an option 100 years ago.
No, yeah, definitely.
You know, so the opportunities to create in different ways, it's exponentially increasing.
Well, the interns and I were talking before, whenever I was like setting stuff up, and we one of the things we talked about was the cringe, like embracing the cringe. Like for them, it's different. I don't remember, it was like old Facebook posts, but for our generation, it was the away message, like the aim away message of like lyrics. And it's just that feeling of somebody reaching out and be like, are you okay? It's just, just somebody cares. Oh, I love it. It's like instant validation for these feelings I'm feeling. And like, we don't have that. That's like not a permanent thing. AIM is now gone. So like none of that stuff is stored, or it's probably stored and saved somewhere, but it's not active. So you can't, put it out anymore.
What was your AIM screen name?
Boredom personified.
Boredom personified.
But I maxed out the characters. Boredom was like BOREDUM.
Okay.
And personified was FYD because I couldn't get the IED in there.
Nice.
And I mean, all my lyrics were like The Used and Taking Back Sunday and like 30 Seconds to Mars and just the like. So what we were talking about earlier was like just some of the shit. Like yours was like, I guess I got to be the one to reach out to my friends to like get them to hang out with me. I guess it's up to me to like force this kid. I was like, oh man, woe is me. And like that we all have that. Theirs is a little bit more permanent. Like it's archived and you can dig up things on Twitter. Fuck fake friends, I think was the one that she said. That's so clutch because it's like, yeah, everybody fucking feels like that at some point. And I for sure probably had it as an away message in some other formatting of the words. But that idea is like, man, I think it's important to embrace that because it's like the stuff that you feel like makes you cringe is your cringe is somebody's cool. So you can't be yucking anybody's yum when in the artistic journey you're taking to discover stuff because it's like that thing you might not put out because you're a little bit vulnerable or avoidant of wanting to talk about this or that is like that may be the thing. That could be the thing that changes everything. You never know. I don't know. This collaborative process, man, is like it's not even just like in a particular endeavor. Like my artist journey has collaboratively blended things so that music has worked with video for me a lot. And then video has worked with tech for me a lot. And then like my interest in tech and electronics already lets me sort of flesh out ways of doing things that maybe other people don't think about doing in terms of maybe like using this input to this output and running these here and splitting this signal and do it in a way that doesn't degrade or, like that's my weird neurodivergent brain. Like that's scratches that itch for me. And so I love how like when people are like, oh, how did you get into photography and videography? It's like touring, like doing music led me to being around, musicians that had touring photographers and videographers out there. Like, and so when you like, so I did a European tour with a band called Our Last Night. I was their tour manager and merch guy for a while. And I remember one of the European tours we did, they took this guy, Matty Vogel, out with us. And we had a lot of long drives and no Wi-Fi in the van, the little Sprinter van that we're riding around in. So there's no signal. There's nothing to do with Flappy Bird was the game that was out at that point. So we're like all trying to beat our high scores. And it's like,
it's a great game.
And I have it on my phone downloaded, but I can't open it. I guess it's like not active anymore. It's kind of fucked up. But that process of like
end of an era,
those long drives when I wouldn't be in the shotgun seat, with the driver, I would just be like, okay, like I'm going to sit in the back and I would pick Maddie's brain and like, hey, can I shoot with that camera? Like, your backup camera, can I shoot some stuff? Like if you're not using it? And he was like, yeah. Like, and I was like, can you explain this to me? And then he gives me a fundamentals and mechanics breakdown of things. And Maddie's out with, I don't know who he's out with right now, but he was just most recently, he was out with Billie Eilish. And before that, he was out with 30 Seconds to Mars. And Mr. Wives, and just a bunch of bands. And like, he's doing really, really well. And that's like one of my mentors. And then my buddy Josiah, I've slept on a van floor with him, and he's out with Shawn Mendes. He's an artist on retainer or photographer on retainer for Island Records. So he's out with Shawn Mendes almost exclusively and all the time. And Tom Falcone's out with, I think, Big Sean and maybe DaBaby recently. And he used to be out with Mayday Parade and some bands that I was touring with in that scene. And so it's like, I learned photography and videography from the music world. And then I came back and I started to like apply it. And I did have sort of like a natural inclination for visual composition. And, you know, photography comes down to like what tools you give yourself. I started buying new lenses and trying new things. And that's the new gear purchase. I spent like $10,000 in 1 year on like lenses and camera bodies and peripherals and adapters and gimbals and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, I don't care if I'm good at this stuff right now. I want to learn. I want to figure it out. Like, I know I don't like the way our music videos look right now. I want to make them look better. And so in an endeavor to pursue my music artist journey, I had to pursue this video and photography one too. And sometimes it feels like I do more of one than the other, and that can be a little disconcerting, but they're always sort of like collaboratively bringing me like input from one another and constantly feeding the machine. And so like it keeps me, I feel in this place where like I haven't put out enough of the stuff where I feel like I don't want to die with it in me, you know, but I do feel like I'm not doing it enough or as much as I want to. So I need to like step up. I got to do more. And so like sometimes I feel like I'm unfulfilled, but then if I can have the benefit of perspective and hindsight and look and be like, fuck, I have traveled the world. I have played songs in other countries for people that sang every word and like and a non-English native speaking country. Like that stuff's so powerful. And I feel like I just like wash over it. Like it's not happening right now. So it's like, it's out of sight, out of mind kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's like the need to fill the empty hole in your soul. It doesn't go away. When am I gonna feel satisfied?
Yeah.
You know?
You never write the song, and like somebody said to me, like maybe it was you even. You're like, when you write if you write a song and it's a hit single and it crushes the Billboard, are you done then? Is that where you just stop? Oh, I beat the game, so like that's it.
Sometimes I think about, and I don't follow the lives of celebrities closely, so I don't know anything about, say, Adam Levine, right?
Okay, yeah.
But sometimes I think like, what must it be like to have climbed the Maroon 5 mountain and then taken this spaceship to Adam Levine land,
Yeah.
and then like, and what's the show that The Voice.
The
Thank
Voice,
you.
yeah.
I appreciate that.
So the first season of The Voice that summer it happened. They were filming during Warped Tour season, 2012, and we shared the stage, or 2011, and we were sharing the Ernie Ball stage with her on Warped Tour that year in 2011.
Who?
2011, Juliet Sims. And so I remember Kevin Lyman, the guy who threw Warped Tour, was like, you can see him in some of that first season. Like he's one of the people waiting at the side of the stage for her while she sings, and she's got a truly fucking brilliant voice. Like she's a once in a generation type. She's like a Janis Joplin and like severely underrated, I think. But she shared the stage with us, and she did a song with All Time Low that I always bug the Corner Brothers to play whenever they're down at the first. And that's where I discovered her. And then Automatic Love Letter was her artist name, her like band name. And she was dating this guy, Andy, in Black Veil Brides, and he would watch them side stage. So I started talking to him, and they were like this really big metal band at that point. And he was just so chilly. Like, it's like his scale of how big he was and what he was doing. Like, I know what you're saying. Like with Maroon 5, you're like, okay, when you get to that level, it's like, what's that fucking ride like? And I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, it's got to be just like, it's just another day. I guarantee they fucking feel like we do. Because it's like maybe there's more money in the bank account, so it's like a little less stress, and you've got a little bit more people in your circle that can make things easier for you. If you're like, hey, I want to get this song started. Remember that idea I was humming? Give me a this, and a this, and I'm going to come into the studio at 2:00 and we're going to knock something out. Like you can have some people to kind of work, and you've resource pool to kind of work with. But yeah, I don't know what the scandal. I think he's like cheating on his wife or something. I don't it's not my place to say. I don't know. I don't give a shit. But like, you see him kind of going through it, and I'm like, is that it for him? Is he done now? Is that like,
it's like, oh, he's still just a person.
Yeah.
He makes mistakes. But so you've got this dream, right? And you're talking about, I feel like I should do more, but this dream continues to motivate you to invest in yourself and to buy more equipment and to try and to try and to try. What happens if you achieved your version of the dream, and then I wonder if that would be as painful as not being successful,
Right.
I wonder if that would be, is that the same pain or is that a different pain?
I think it's a furnace. Like you're throwing shit into the furnace that fuels you. Like each song is this like log that you're throwing in there. This big show that you've got going on at Gramercy, in New York, that's a log. And I like the last show, the show at Stage West with Drowning Pool, like I started doing this. I said I wanted to start this pre-show ritual. I was like, I'm doing my pre-show rituals all wrong. I was like, I don't think I'm authentically taking anything out of it. I think I was doing things that I felt were supposed to be good for. We always have like a moment, like my boys and I, like we'll always kind of get together and like so we played this show last Friday or 2 Fridays ago for this elementary school. And it was like rock the school or something like that. And there's like 500-600 K through.
I saw photos of that. That looked awesome.
Man, it was so cool. We've never played a better show. Those kids go so hard. And the thing that was cool about it was that like I gave myself time to sit there and be there. And I was like, man, I don't remember if a get together in school or some sort of like faculty presentation of any kind that would have been anything like this. And the parents were really responsive. Like it was covered by the news and you're seeing all these parents' comments. I was like, I actually gave myself time to like enjoy that as it was happening. But for the Stage West show, I was like scrambling like Dirk's in-ears busted. He tells me day of show and didn't decide to bring a set with him or, anything like that. I had to have you bring down a set and then they decided, he's like, no, I'm just going to use these. I'm like, oh yeah, of course you're going to use my $100 Sennheisers instead of these like $250 ones that are like supposed to be way better for you as a drummer who's hearing click and tracks and everything in your ears. Like that was like, I've started my pre-show ritual was I wanted to basically bring myself to center. Cause like, I feel like I walk on, even in Indonesia, the last time we were there, I felt like the tracks had started for our intro and the guys were already out there. And I had like 15 seconds to kind of like give myself a moment to kind of lock in and be like, all right, be grateful for this. Like I'm halfway across the world and my music brought me here. Like that, be fucking proud of that. And so instead of trying to coerce myself into being grateful to it, my new practice has been being like, you know what? Every artist at some point has to step out on a stage and play a song they've never played before, or a set they've never played before, or a show they've never played before in front of a crowd of people who've never seen them before. Like that, those are consistent steps in almost every performing artist's like journey. And so for me, I was like, every one of them at some point, my favorite artists, all the artists that I've liked to go see, there's a walk, like the way that they move. And it's like, you're not even there really. It's like you're there and they're feeding off of you. Certainly. Like I feed off of a crowd, certainly. But like, you don't play to the audience. You play for the audience. And so you're not like placating them and giving them the show that they want. You're giving them the show that you want to give them. And you have to go out and decide like you're going to fucking win when you're done. Like when you're done, their minds will have been changed. And so my pre-show rituals is I'm doing my warm-ups and stuff. And then like the tracks start and it's loud enough that you don't hear me in the corner somewhere in a venue before I run up on stage. But like, I'm going to fucking win. Like I give myself a moment to be like honest with myself and be like, this is my moment to go out here and fucking win. So do it. Like show up for yourself. Like this is what you want to do. Don't not give yourself the time to be in the right headspace whenever you step out here to do the thing that you love to do. Aaron passed away at the beginning of 2021 and like, we didn't play a show after that. Cause I was like, are we just not going to pick it up again? Are we never going to play a show again? And so it took until that show, like just a few weeks ago, where it was like, okay, like how many more instances of people not being around and being able to enjoy this and do the thing that they were put here to do? Am I going to endure and witness and suffer before I'm like over my bullshit, and like willing to just be like, go out there and fucking do it. Do the thing you were put here to do. Go out and fucking win.
You're giving yourself permission to give yourself a pep talk.
Yeah, I guess if that's how it helps me. But like for me, it's like, it's more also the words that we hear and that we speak and put out there. Like super important. Like every connotation matters. If you say to yourself before you walk out on stage, I'm going to fucking win. What does that feel like? It feels fucking good. It feels good, especially when your tracks are playing. You're about to go play your show. People are here. It's like all the best case scenarios have lined up. It's empowering. It's kind of like it's like a reinforcing statement for me.
It helps to build the positive feelings of confidence so that
Certainly.
so that maybe those are louder than the screaming insecurities.
Right.
Like, don't let them see.
But that's always the juggle. That's always the fucking game. It's like, which is how am I letting the insecurities win the day, or am I letting my confidence win? Is this confidence or is this ego? Like how much of this is bullshit and how much of this is like, no, I fucking deserve this. I put in my time.
So let's circle this back around here. And because as I was preparing to come speak with you today, I was thinking about Collab or Die and thinking the interplay between the insecurities and the like trying to like, build yourself up enough to actually continue to try, right? That's where the collaboration comes in. Because when you do get stuck and inevitably you will get stuck.
It's like quantifiably certain.
Yeah. What you're stuck in is your feelings, and your feelings are, I believe, coming from a place in your body where there's a not an intellectual ability for you to kind of like go in and have a conversation like we're having, where you're going, well, hey, what's happening right now is you're scared. And so what you're really going to want to do is, just here's the list of the things that you've done, which gives you some credibility. And so that that you're going to continue to go do things. Life is long. You're not having that conversation.
Right.
So when you run into somebody else and they can take the thinking part of their brain and look at you and just say like, oh, well, let's just do the thing that I know how to do, because they're not dealing with their insecurities maybe in that moment. And so I think collaboration helps people continue to move forward whenever it's hard, when it's hard to keep trying.
Yeah, I always hated the term writer's block. I was like, that doesn't feel like it's genuinely serving what I'm experiencing right now, because what I'm experiencing right now feels like a void. I can't call upon anything creative to do this thing. And really, I think it's just the things you put in the furnace. I found like things like going to an antique shop after I wake up, or thrift shopping or something like that for like maybe half an hour before I really start my day is good, because I see a bunch of weird, tangible, kooky objects that are just like, they get my gears turning. Oh, it's this weird like snow globe. Here's this vintage microphone. Like, what are these things? What feelings do these evoke? What's the history of this object? And like that is something that is like a weird kind of thing that I do in my day to kind of put fuel in the furnace and like get those gears going. I used to get up and smoke weed like all the time. That was like the only way I could feel creative. I had the wake and bake. It's just enough to get the creative juices going before I'm going into work on like, edits for football or something like that. And then eventually I'd just be sitting there and be like, I'm way too high. Like, I don't feel anything right now. Like the creative juices are not working. Turns out maybe I should have like put some food in my stomach and like maybe give myself a little bit extra time to be awake and around to see some shit to get those juices going.
Turns out that motivation is part of creativity.
Yeah.
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 I had an experience. I went to a museum called the Vasa. And it's a ship that sank, I want to say 600 years ago.
Where's this at?
Sweden.
Okay.
It's in Sweden. And it went down off the coast. A king had decided he wanted this ship to be built. And it was, he's made all the specifications, and the shipbuilders were like, this is not going to work. And he's like, do it anyways. So the ship goes out and it just goes off the coast and it just goes down. And most people on board died. And we're like trapped in this. It was like a huge,
So they're like entombed in
this ship. And because of the temperature of the water, the ship was essentially preserved.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they finally found, technology to bring the ship up and then preserve it. And they put it inside of this huge, huge building, so you could walk around this
sounds
ship
fucking
on
insane.
3 different levels. This is the first time that I ever enjoyed a museum, and I went in there and I was able to. I could feel my imagination get turned on, and I was like, it made me feel like alive, and like kind of like instantly in that moment gives you perspective of, okay, well, I'm here and I'm alive during this time, but like I can see how life was right here
600 years ago.
Yeah. So whenever you're talking about going to a thrift shop to like kind of wake up your imagination, I can relate. Not something that I ever thought, like when I was a kid, museums were the most boring place in the world. But when you're a kid, your imagination is alive. It's
right.
The world is still filled with possibilities. And as you become an adult and you have to interact with the world where like you have work to do and you need to actually show up and take care of things and you have responsibilities, for me, it started to crowd the experience of anything's possible.
Yeah. And it starts to diminish it, I feel like. For me, like as a kid, museums were boring. The best part of the aquarium was like the gift shop, because you could get like Beanie Baby frogs and all kinds of cool shit that you could like not find anywhere else. These weird like tornado tubes. I don't know if they still sell those, but those were a huge hit for me whenever I was a kid. But yeah, like I don't know. You have to be interested in something. I remember going to the Smithsonian way too young to really appreciate it. You know, like the gravity of what you're really seeing in there is like lost on you, I think, whenever you're too bewildered by all the other stuff in life.
You remember school field trips?
Yeah.
Like I kind of hated school field trips. And now I'm like, when I see school buses, if I go play in a city and I see a school bus full of kids, I think to myself, I'm like, okay, like I would give anything to go back to a place in my life where some other adult planned for and paid for a trip for me to go.
For sure. My mom packed these fucking coolers full of like all the snacks. I had like all the Gushers. I got backseat for life on any field trip ever, because people were like, just let him back there. He's got all the snacks. Like he's going to open a fucking shop and start passing out Twizzlers. It's going to be a game. Let's do it.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. I love field trips. And I feel like I've grown into a world now where I utilize my creativity in that field trip mentality, where it's like, if I'm not feeling it, if I need to sit down and do something, I better go do something that's field trip oriented beforehand to feel like that's what helps put me in the right space.
So you give yourself a small field trip.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then, the songwriting is its own field trip. But yeah, so Collab or Die, this is going to be the podcast. I don't know. I don't have dates lined up for my next guest, but I wanted to start utilizing this space. Like, I built the table, I've constructed all the things, I've built my kingdom. Now it's like, I want to start utilizing it. And I'm really glad that you decided to come on and do this, because I think it's all collaboration. Like you said, like you're like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. Like I'm benefiting from this, like in ways that are not just monetarily. What is it that is like, what is it about working through other people's, not their bullshit, but their process, like wherever you work with different artists that are in all different places in their journeys. So like, what is something that's happened to you recently? Do you feel like, aside, like Layla is a really good one, because she kind of came out of nowhere and she was like, oh yeah, I've got all these songs like written. And then she would come back and have like a whole slew of other songs to be ready to roll. You're like, what the hell is happening here? And like, I'm more curious, like when you're collaborating with people, like what are some of the takeaways that you feel? Like what are the parallels? What are the things that you see in everybody? Aside from like the insecurities and some of like the people working through their bullshit stuff, like what do you feel is like a common setback for a lot of people that are kind of like going through this process with you?
Yeah. Well, so let's say like the thing that I've noticed that has been ubiquitous is, regardless of what a person has achieved, it doesn't seem to quiet that voice of like, is this worth it? Now, maybe that's just the perspective I'm getting, because the space that I'm working in is people coming to seek support for their creativity. So it may be completely untrue that all artists are going through this, but
right. You don't have to like put a blanket on it, but like,
yeah,
it does. I feel like there are a lot of similarities between a lot of the things that from what you say to me, I'm like, I'm really curious to see like what those similarities are. Like, what are the things that you feel like are like the tenant 3 things that are really holding people back from kind of going after it.
Okay, if I had to boil it down to 3, I would say seeking perfection, right?
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good enough yet.
Yeah. Like you don't give yourself any creativity. There's no creative time. That's only like me, I jump straight to the edit side of things. It's like if I got this demo, I'm ready to edit it and get it to like being done without doing any of the exploring of the creative side in the beginning stuff that like is like the meat and bones of what really makes a song beautiful. Like Mountain.
That was what a gift that song was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Not bad for a shitty song.
Yeah, right. I don't even feel like I wrote that song. But yeah, I'd say seeking perfection, not making time, not considering, like, so many of the people who have come in to work with me, really the question they're trying to answer is like kind of should I even bother? But really it's, do I have permission? Can I give myself permission to create?
Yeah.
And
is it like a not wanting to be vulnerable thing? Like sometimes for me, I'm like, it's at one point in my journey, it felt weird to make up a melody, it's just like, oh, it's going to sound weird. Or like you're trying to like make excuses for it as you're making it. Like, it's going to be different. Like, you'll see, like whenever I get it fixed out, like, whenever I flesh this out a little bit more, it's going to be a little catchier, but like you're just shutting yourself down because you don't want to be vulnerable.
Well, I think that's not necessarily the direction I was going with it, but I think that rings true. It kind of like falls under that umbrella of like, do I have permission to be creative? Because that includes like, it's like the vulnerability side of it is I want to write this song, but I don't want to write this song. I don't want to say how I actually feel because how I actually feel, that's not a thing I want to put out there into the world. So I think part of it is like, am I allowed to just say what I really think? Like, can I write a song that starts with the line like, I don't think that I should write songs. I don't think that my songs are going to be good. I don't think I'm good enough. I wrote a song. God, I've been trying to write the absolute most honest things that I can think of.
I feel like I'm noticing that in the trend in a lot of songwriting. Song lyrically, like Taylor Swift's new album I haven't listened to, but one of the things I've heard is that it's very wordy. There's a lot of like, it's very wordy. There's a lot of dialogue taking place. And I feel like that's something I love music that's more clever. And so to me, this like really nuanced, descript, like pop punk kind of went in this direction. I don't know if it's still there, but it definitely was as of like a few years ago, like very like it's like too much detail. And so to me, that separates me from being able to feel, I take more from the connection of the clever wording and wordplay of the understanding of something than I do from the literal wordplay of, describing the exact incident of, the Driver's License song by Olivia Rodrigo. That's like lyrically, that song makes me think of like, I'm like, that's too much. It's like to me, that's too much, but I guess that would be my gripe. That would be like not a way I would choose to write, or at least not right now. I guess maybe I'm not in that phase of, writing for me. Yeah.
That song, I think that song spoke to a generation who could relate to it at that time.
Right.
I couldn't relate to that song, but I really enjoyed playing that song.
Right. But but wordy as hell. Like, it's very descript. And me, I need like that wordplay, that sort of like tongue in cheek, that sort of calm response.
When I saw you play recently, one of the things that popped into my mind spontaneously, it was like, oh, like Johnny's a poet. He's a poet.
Yeah, I think I approach lyrics from a poetry perspective.
Yeah, and the music and the vibe, the show, the production behind what you're doing, it is a really complicated version of supporting just the poems that you're writing. I don't look at myself so much as a poet as I don't know. This is good.
Be pretentious.
Yeah, be pretentious. I think it's more, introspective and philosophical. That's the way that I write.
Yeah. Mountain definitely puts that across. And I think like if you feel like you're in a place where you're like allowing yourself to be like more open and honest and doing that, you're going to explore even more. Like you have the capability to explore even more.
Yeah.
So what's the third thing?
Perfection. I'm not sure if I have permission.
Oh, and then the time.
Yeah. What? Yeah. And making the time. Yeah. It's really just, I don't know. I think I was going to try to tie the time and the permission, sort of like, am I worth it to put the time into?
Yeah. Time and space are kind of like, they are kind of like in that same little realm.
Yeah. And, yeah, I would say if I had to pick a third one, it would be the belief that something that you can't do is the reason why you're not creating.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Does that fall under imposter syndrome where you feel like you're not good enough to do it? Or does it like, because I don't think when I've got examples of me doing it, it's hard for me to say, oh, I can't do it, but it does feel like I can't do it. Or I'm like, I'm just not hearing this melody here. And sometimes that's a per song thing. Like, I like that Relic Hearts is sitting in a place where we've got a lot of demos, so I don't have to be stuck with, I have to write to this song, otherwise we don't move forward. Like, that's not helpful for me. Like, I need to be able to explore this when I'm feeling this, and I'm at a point where I'm ready to start rapping some songs. So I'm starting to like close off the amount of time I'm going to spend working on it and start letting the refining process start, and not.
What's the quote? Art is never finished. It's just abandoned in an interesting place.
Right. Yeah, it's like that plane in Iceland that's just like left out there. They're like, yeah, people will go take photos of that. That's art now. That's a monument. I think it is actually a national monument.
But yeah, no, so I don't know. As I'm thinking more about this, I kind of want to add a fourth one and just say in general, like mental health, the emotional state of the artist. Because there's the artist and then there's the person behind the artist.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that I found when people started coming in is what I almost don't, in some cases, I almost don't have to do or say very much. It's just that by virtue of having spent my life making music, standing on stages and, walking the artist path, by making the choice for a person to make the choice to come into my space and to be listened to, and taken seriously by me, that's all they need to go home and just do it. But sometimes what they want to talk about is their feelings. And
so you're like, but I'm not a therapist.
And I swear everybody has a story about when they were 5 years old. Like, somebody told me that I wasn't good at singing, and so I didn't do it anymore. And like everybody that I talked to that I have worked with has had a story about that person who said that their voice wasn't a thing that should be shared. And it's, for me, it's why on the top of the stairs going down to the studio, it says, find your voice, make something beautiful. And, to me, that doesn't mean learn how to sing and make something beautiful. That means find your voice, find that your voice matters, and then just make something.
Yeah. I feel like part of what's benefited me from coming down there and working just not just with you, but like beside you, is that I feel comfortable with your understanding of where I'm at because of your perspective, coming down and being like, I don't know. Like when we were doing Legends Never Die, like that was really up there in my register. And I was like, does this sound good? Like, I feel like am I hitting this, or am I like, and it's not like I couldn't have listened back and heard it in the context of a mix and been like, oh yeah, that does sound good. And it's not like I need the validation, but I do trust trusted sources of like,
I need the validation.
It's partially that, but it's also like it's not the validation because I need it for me, my pick me feelings, but like it's because I want to know that somebody who knows what they're talking about and has worked across like a gambit of this can say, yeah, definitely. Like you could see where you can see where I would be vulnerable or insecure about something. And you're like, I see why you're saying that, but you listened to our songs for the first time and you were like, you do these really interesting things with the way you choose to express this vocal or this voicing of this. And you're like, I just love it. It's like, it's something I wish you should highlight more in your singing moving forward. And like, to me, that analytical thing, it's not a validation because I need the validation. It's like, I appreciate the analysis because it's not my perspective. And so in that collaborative understanding of what I'm doing, it's like, I can hear it from you.
That makes a lot of sense. So what I'm hearing is that you would like me to validate that you weren't looking for validation.
Right. Yeah.
And also,
but don't say it like that. Just word it some other way.
Okay, cool. No, I think people who are working on singing are often answering that question, is this good or not? And so the part of your brain that's sort of picking apart, like you're listening for what's not working, and then I'm going to improve it, right? That's like the trick of like, oh, well, how do I get better at something? Well, I'm going to place my attention on how do I tune up the mechanics of the way that I sing. And so when your attention's going there, that's what you hear. So having the outside opinion of anyone in general serves to point out to you the things that you're not paying attention to, because that stuff's not bothering you. Yeah. And they go, you know what, actually, I really like when you do this thing. It feels really good for me. And additionally, you're saying that because I have experience as a musician, and I've kind of I've seen a broad spectrum of how people sing, whenever I say it, it carries a little bit more weight from the technical side of things.
Yeah, it's not like it's authoritative, right? You're not like, oh, you're not doing this right. Like, you're never trying to like shoot me down on how I'm doing this or approach or, diction or whatever. You're like, oh, okay. Like, and that's what I appreciate. And I feel like, man, if more artists had a Jason O in their life, helping them through that, some of the, especially people that I know suffer from this, like artists that are super neurotic, artists by nature are super neurotic. And so when you're in your own head and you're afraid to create, and you're one of those, how many people that start the podcast that stop 3 episodes in, it's like that little bit of technical understanding and like leveling and getting rid of the dispersing of the uncertainties that you might feel about the beginning of the start of something. And that works with like podcasts, it works with like songwriting. That's super vital, I think, sometimes. And it's not a resource that's readily available, because the other option is to like write this and put it out on SoundCloud and have somebody comment 30 seconds in, like, this fucking sucks. And then you're like, okay, I got no feedback from that. And now I feel a little worse about myself. That's interesting. And it's just not conducive. And so like with the Happy Valley Song Lab, I wanted to like talk about that a little bit before we wrap, but like, and HVSL Records, like that idea, I think we're going to see more of that over time. And it's, as recording gets a little bit cheaper and resources become a little bit more available, and there's more, leeway to the building of that, I think it makes sense for there to be like, you don't have to live in Nashville anymore. You don't have to live in LA, like, to collaborate. We're collaborating with people in Denver and other corners of the state and in Nashville and like Texas. Like that's that global market now, where it's like, okay, if you can find your tribe in that world economy of other artists, you can do some serious damage just by virtue of showing up and doing it. And you guys do it, and you like with the Song Lab, like you creating just the space, you're like, that's not the final destination. That's Studio A for right now, right? But like as it grows, the goal is, like artist retreats and stuff like that. I just listened to a podcast with Rick Rubin on it the other day. Cannot recommend it enough, man. He's like, he doesn't approach any of it from like an artist perspective, really, because he doesn't really know much about music, but he knows what he likes and what he hears and how to kind of disseminate what is good and about somebody that they're maybe not placating to. And in the podcast, he was talking about hip hop and how it was like, he would see these hip hop bands live and they were like, they sounded way better than they did on the records, which were basically just like R&B records with them rapping over, but none of the ambience, none of the thumping and the loud speakers and stuff like that. And he gives a couple references of songs for like an A and B comparison of where it started and where it ended up, that it started to blow up. And just, you're like my Rick Rubin, I feel like, because it's like, I hear a lot of what he says and I'm like, oh yeah, Jason says this stuff like all the time. And so to me, that, like, credit to you, like that puts you like wise beyond your years. He started when he was like in his 20s and at NYU. And, we're in a world now where it's like knowledge is still power. And you've got this like really interesting subset of knowledge that is super helpful to an entire, I think, generation of, not just music creators, but content creators. I like watching your journey going through like the media side, like the video creation side of things, like doing that TikTok dance. I don't know how well that's going to do. Don't know if it actually was good or we just told ourselves it was good so we could stop. But like, I enjoy the frivolous, like childlike behavior we exert when we're there to just explore and try new things. And to me, that is so much more cathartic and enriching than anything else that I could have chosen to do with my day yesterday. And I'm in the middle of a move where I should be moving into my new house, and I'm not like I'm pushing it off to do this podcast today. But it's like, to me, that's I'm filling the furnace.
I'm super grateful for the interns that are pushing me to
that's that youthful vitality I was talking about. They're dancing behind the computer.
Yeah, but it's
keeping us young.
For sure. Well, so, having the internship program that Angel runs through the band, I've been fortunate this semester in that, Martina, I already had a relationship with her because she was here 2 semesters ago. And so I was comfortable with her already, and she was comfortable, beating me up whenever I was being a pain in the.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to just be called on your bullshit and just steamroll. And sometimes you're like, but I don't want to go here. And then you just get shoved into this room and you start dancing. I'm like, all right, I'm dancing to a Meghan Trainor song today. Fuck it.
Well, so it made.
You have to invite creativity in.
Yeah. It made it. So it was to the point where it made a lot of sense to her whenever I said, like, hey, kind of artist hat on here. I'm gonna really commit to making TikToks. I think I'd like to make 1 a day. And then I'm like, by the way, that artist that you're working with, he's gonna be a pain in the ass. He's gonna squirm out of this.
Sorry about that guy. He's a fucking mess, right?
Yeah, and I so that's
good luck with that, psycho.
That's been a really interesting collaboration. There was a day where after I had said that, the interns came over and I hid in my bedroom with the door open because I didn't want to confront those insecurities. I stayed in my bedroom and I pretended like I wasn't there so that
I'm sorry, I'm so sick.
Yeah.
Don't come in here though.
No, I literally you could see the bottom of my bed whenever you walk by the door. So I actually curled my legs up so you couldn't see the bottom of the bed because I was hiding. But to have the opportunity to work in a capacity where I'm able to say, hey, I think this is the way forward for creativity, because for me, the creative path, it's not anymore about, can I write a song and get a lot of people to listen to it, or even can I do it on stage? Because those things are sort of that to me I see as bare minimum for
and that's the thing that people are afraid of. Like, TikTok is this thing where it's like the whole thing invites collaboration, and people are toxically fucking afraid of it. It's like, it's scary to endeavor on something that is not partner with music.
You know who's not afraid of it though is very many young people. And I think that our generation,
because if they blink, they might get fucking traumatized again with another cataclysmic world event. It's like, fuck it, we're gonna create, like, because this is way better than any other scenario that I can come up with in my head of something to do right now.
And so I see my place in the evolution of creativity for the coming generations here. I have gone out and done a lot of things, and yet I still continue to look to see where I'm terrified and want to try to engage in that space, because I think that, writing a song is only one version of creativity. Anything that people aren't sure that they can do but would like to express themselves that way, I find that it's been amazing for my life to find those sticky spots and go poke them.
Well, neurologically, all of the best shit happens on the other side of the fear, because like that's where you're literally forging new paths with the neurons in your brain. Like, you're creating new pathways if you got the neuroplasticity to handle that. And like, just doing the thing that is scary, you definitely come out on the other side better. Like, you always do.
Like the stand-up comedy class that we did. That was fantastic.
And like, I hated the idea of taking a class, but what it really ended up being was, okay, we're going to show up and we're going to do the work. It was literally the same as if I had shown up to do work with you to songwrite. It was like, okay, I need to sit down and write some jokes. I need to learn that process for me, what it's going to look like. And
doing it in this space of comedy makes it so that it's not weighted the way that like music. I've been trying to be successful there, and I don't know if I'm good enough and stuff. When it's comedy, it's not serious, and that's not actually a pursuit of yours or mine. So it's easy to say, well, it's just the work, and I'm just going to do the work.
Right.
I see the doing a TikTok dance in the same light, where that's not a passionate pursuit of mine, and I'm not really wrestling. I haven't been wrestling with that one my whole life. but it does kind of, it's a little bit triggering to get in there and be like, can I do a bevel? Right.
Yeah.
Turns out I can. I did that bevel off and on all night last night. It was awesome.
Now I'm just getting fucking wild and doing it all the time.
That's great. Am I the tube guy outside of the car dealership? I don't know. Maybe I am.
Yeah, man, there's something to this collaborative process that I feel like people need to get over. And that's the idea. Like that's why I wanted to do this, because this is the universality that I'm going to see the more people and more artists that I continue to talk to. And I know it because I've already had these conversations with other people off mic, and that's the general consensus is like, you just grow by trying the things that are hard, and literally everything is literally, at the very least, you got to collaborate with the shit that you're uncomfortable with to get to the other side of where things can be beneficial. You can learn. Even if you fail, you learn shit. So it's like, you just gotta so the fear can't be the thing that stops you. It's like, because it almost doesn't matter. It really doesn't. If it's not like life threatening or actually endangering you physically, like, you should pretty much go for it always, I feel like.
Yeah, but the tiger's right over there, Johnny.
Yeah.
It's coming to get us.
Yeah. He's fucking lurking. He's always there. But all right, well, listen, let's wrap this up.
Hey,
this is a fucking awesome first podcast, dude. I'm really glad that I did it with you.
Fantastic. Yeah. Congratulations on starting this new journey.
Yeah. And now my like diehard fucking goal is I'd like to do one a week for sure. I think to start, that's good. At the very least, one every 2 weeks. Because if they're long enough, it gives you something to watch. And then if 2 weeks later a new one comes out, you're like, okay, I'm interested. But now I got to start booking out a calendar now that I've got space.
I love it.
Yeah, it's going to be a journey. I got to make it to 21. I have to say that I'm in the top fucking 5% of all podcasts in the world. I want that moniker, and not by virtue of putting shitty stuff out, but by virtue of being consistent and showing up and doing the thing that I want to do, which is have an engaging conversation with somebody and get that insight. Because there's things that you've said that I guarantee if people listen to, they're gonna pull something from it and love it.
Well, you'll have to have me back for the 21st episode.
Yeah, for sure. That's how we're breaking it, for sure. All right, I'll see you in 20 episodes.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thanks, brother.
We're always collaborating at all times with the universe.
That is a wrap on another episode of the Collab or Die podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making this episode for you. And now it's time for our favorite part of the show, the part where I beg you to please hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode. Don't be that guy. Follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. I want this podcast to be wherever you are, whenever you need it, just like a reliable wingman or a comforting bowl of mac and cheese. And don't be shy. Give us a shout out on social media at Collab or Die Podcast on all the cool platforms to share your thoughts, your feedback, and your love. Until next time, Collab or Die, baby.